Welcome everyone. My name is Gemma, for those who are meeting me for the first time. So a little bit about myself before we go on, for those who may not have met me. I am a very passionate Montessori educator, have been in Montessori for, I was trying to think because I was filling out the census the other day, I think over 20 years in Montessori. So I'm very passionate and especially about this topic that we're going to be doing today, the role of the educator or the adult. It's a very, very crucial part of being a Montessori teacher and also understanding Montessori. So this is really important. I currently work at a childcare centre as an educational leader. So I support educators to set up their classrooms and work with them. I also work in inclusion support as well. So I work with many adults in this field, and it's one that I'm very passionate about, and I give this type of workshop quite a bit, and it's one workshop that I probably would repeat quite a bit because it's one that is really, really important in understanding, because it can make a difference in the way that a Montessori works. Either it's in your home or in your classroom. So we can always have the most beautifully prepared environment, but when our role comes into it, we can actually, there can be a conflict in that as adults in that space. So let's move on to what we'll cover. So what we'll cover today in this session is we're going to be talking, I'm going to be bringing up some few quotes that Montessori talked about with the role of the adult. So we're going to talk about Montessori's view of the adult. We're going to look at the key roles of an adult, and then we'll break that down to what the role of the adult is in the 0 to 3 years age group, the role of the adult in the 3 to 6 years age group as well. Then we'll touch on the importance of observation, the prepared environment, and then we're going to talk a little bit at the end about the inner preparation of the adult. This was something that Maria Montessori talked quite extensively in her books that she wrote. She said that being a Montessori teacher was far more. It was the development of the adult, not just watching the development of the child, but watching the development of the adult as well, and our inner work as well. So let's go on to a very, very famous quote. This is Marie Montessori's view of the adult, or one of her views of the adult, is that, let's do that, yep. The greatest sign of success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I did not exist. So this doesn't just happen overnight. And of course, in the 0 to 3 age group, the very young babies, we have to be there with them. We have to be supporting them. But as the child gets older and older, and especially in this photograph that you can see, the children are working and the adult is in the background. So the adult is not the centre of attention in a Montessori classroom, but they are the link to the environment. We are to set the environment up, and then we link the child to this environment so that they can become independent and develop their concentration skills. And then we step back. So Maria Montessori is not saying that we are abandoning the child or ignoring the child, but we are there watching the amazing miracles of these children in this space. But the children are working like we're not present, but we are present for them when they need us. But we're standing back and watching this amazing development of these children. So in this photograph here, you'll see that these children are working with one of the world maps, and they're actually matching to this work. They don't need the adult there. The adult will have connected them to the pieces of equipment, and then we're watching to see if they can repeat these lessons that the educator has given before. So a little bit more about this quote. Montessori success is not measured by what the adult teaches, but by how much the children can do and learn on their own. So when we see a child who is deeply engaged in an activity, we need to step back and watch. The child doesn't need our direction or our correction at that time. We can make notes if you're either in the classroom or in your home. I did this with my own children when they were quite little, just sitting back and watching what they're doing, watching what the challenging parts are. Yeah, but the children are working as if you did not exist. That's what she means in that beautiful quote. Yeah, so we're not absent, but we are present and guiding from the sidelines. This is what Marie Montessori means in this quote. But we are ready and waiting for the child when they need us. Yeah, so we're allowing the child space to explore and repeat activities. That repetition is extremely important part. And when we see repetition, we think, aha, that's like a ha-ha moment for me. And when you see a child repeating an activity over and over again, that is when the learning happens, when they are repeating the activity over and over again. Okay, so we'll go on next to the key roles of an adult in a Montessori classroom. And you'll see in our little diagram there, the first one is observer, and I talked about that a little bit in that first quote. Observation is central to Montessori, and Montessori is a method of observation. So without observation, we are not practicing Montessori. We need to observe, and we'll go on more to discuss methods of observation a little bit later on in one of the other slides. But we need to, as adults, learn to watch quietly without interfering with the child's work. And we're ready and waiting for them. So for an example, if I was watching a young toddler in my space and I can see that they were trying to take their shoes off, I would step back a little bit and actually observe what is happening. I wouldn't let them get to the point where they're so frustrated they're really crying, but I would let them get to a point where they have to try another way. So they might pull at the side of the shoe, then they might pull at the back of the shoe. And with practice and also knowing your child, if it's a child in your home or the child in the classroom, you get to know what level do we need to step in, or what level can we actually just watch a little bit more and see if they can develop that independence to keep going in that moment. Yeah, because when we step in too quickly, we actually prevent the natural flow of the child's concentration, and we actually prevent the child from developing that resilience and problem-solving skills. So it seems really simple. It's taking off a shoe, but it's building so much more under those layers. Taking off a shoe and the look on the child's face, because I remember when I was watching this little girl take her shoe off, the look on her face when she actually took the shoe off by herself, she stood up and she said, I did it, I did it. And that joy is what drives the child to continue their learning. When we step in too quickly, we actually take away from the child. Yeah. There are times when we may have to step in because we don't want the child to get so frustrated that taking off their shoes is not seen as a joyful experience, because we want the child to see joy in everything they do. So we need to watch without unnecessary interference. So that is a skill that is learnt by practice. So practicing watching your child in the environment. Guiding. So we introduce the environment and we model activities. So the adult is the bridge, as I talked about in the beginning slide. The adult is the bridge between the child and the environment. So we prepare the home and the classroom and make sure that it's ordered, beautiful, and accessible to the child's development and stage of development and their age. So depending on what the age of the child is, the environments will look different. We show the child how to use a piece of equipment. So we set up this beautiful space and we put materials in it that are developmentally appropriate for the stage and age of the child that we're working with. And then we show the child how to use that material and how to be careful with that material. So we guide them in this space. Yeah. We guide the children and we model to the children how to use these materials in this space. So we're guiding them. So we're observer first, and then we're guiding them. And children learn more when we actually use less words. Yeah, so they actually are watching our movements rather than what we're actually saying to them. So when we're modeling, they are watching everything that we're doing. So they're absorbing how we speak, how we move, and how we handle the materials. We're also a protector. Our role is also a protector. We ensure safety, both physical and emotional. So the very, very young child, we need to make sure that we are providing a space where they can be safe. So child-proofing a space, ensuring that they can have the space that they need to move, but we're ensuring that it's safe for, so the materials are not too small, the spaces are safe for them. So we're setting up a space that has limits, but we're allowing the child to move in that space. But we're also acting as a protector of their emotional. And that means that we are offering routines and gentle boundaries. So children love routines, and they also feel very safe when we offer boundaries, gentle boundaries. And our last one is we're a role model. So we embody grace, respect, and calmness. So we model those things to the children, and they learn, as I said before, children learn more from who we are than what we say. So the way that our tone of voice, and they watch our observations of how we treat other children and other adults in the environment. So they watch every single thing that we do. So we are their role model from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. I remember when I was very heavily pregnant with my son, I spilt some water on the floor, but because I was with my daughter, so I was heavily pregnant with my daughter, I spilt some water on the floor, and I couldn't bend down to wipe it off. So I actually put the towel on the floor and then I wiped it with my foot. Later on, a few days later, I actually saw him modeling wiping water off the floor the exact same way that I had done it in that space. I mean, that couldn't be helped. I just physically couldn't do it in that space. But children watch everything that you do. Yeah, they watch, and sometimes you're not aware of it, but they watch everything that you do rather than what you say. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to and I forgot to mention, if there's anyone here in the live webinar that I'm doing now, if you have any questions that you would like me to clarify while we're going, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Feel free to ask if you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation. I'm more than happy with that. Otherwise, we can leave it to the end of the session as well. But more than happy to answer any questions as we go on. Okay, so let's go on to a little bit about the role from birth to 3, the role of the adult from birth to 3. So in the first 3 years, the adult's role is primarily to respond with warmth and sensitivity. So the first 3 years is about building trust and secure attachments, responding to the children when they are crying, responding to the children's attempts to communicate. We want children to know that this space where they are is safe and warm and caring, because through these secure attachments, they will want to go out and learn. So primary role is to build those secure attachments. Yeah, and to respond to the children's cries, gestures, any ways of communication with sensitivity. Yeah. Young babies and children, they want to engage in communication and language. And through that, they think, oh, this world is safe and trusting, and then it encourages them to do more communication as well. We need to respect the child's needs for movement and exploration. So the baby's body is made to move. They want to move. They don't want to be restrained. So in Montessori, like bouncers and strollers are fine. We need strollers and bouncers, but it's when it's long periods of time in these types of materials. It's when they spend long periods of time in it that it restricts their movements. In this photograph that you can see that I put here, I actually found quite an old photo of my son. So my son is actually 19 now, but in this photo that you'll see, he's lying on a little movement mat, and he's looking at one of the very first mobiles that are introduced to children of this age. And you'll see that he has freedom to move. And freedom to move is not just about the materials, just having a movement mat. You'll see that the clothing that we put children in at this age also has an impact on the types of movements they can have. You'll see in this outfit that he's wearing, this is tied up at the sides, and that's actually supportive for newborns because a lot of the time they don't like putting things over their heads. It's actually quite frightening. But this shirt, you can actually lay it down and does it up the sides. It allows for lots of movement. And the child, so we are supporting the child's need for movement by actually providing them for a space to move their bodies, and we're actually dressing them in clothing that allows them to have, not restricted movement. So if they're in, like when they're in jeans, really tight jeans or really tight outfits, it's not nice to move. So respecting the need for movement and actually providing space and clothing and opportunities for them to move is really important as well, because at this age they cannot tell us. So we need to be aware of those things. Providing opportunities for independence, even in small things like self-feeding. Young babies can be very independent. And in this photograph that we can see here, at I think he was 4 or 5 weeks old. I can't quite remember exactly, but he was very, very young in that photo. He is having a moment of independence. He can track the mobile. That is a form of independence. He's tracking. And if we look at the deep concentration that he's having in that photo, in the photograph there. So that is an opportunity for independence. A child who's learning how to feed themselves, holding a spoon, even if they cannot put the spoon to their mouth yet. It's just finding those really, really tiny moments where we can encourage independence. Because when we encourage independence, it builds those moments in the child where they feel good about themselves. Yeah, and it develops that concentration as well. A young child holding a small glass, taking up to their mouths. Yeah. In this 0 to 3 age, using consistent and gentle language to build security and trust as well, and observing rather than interrupting. So we need to, instead of jumping in to correct or direct, we step back and we pause and we wait to see what's going to happen. Yeah. So for example, a very young baby here, they can't tell us when they've had enough of looking at this mobile and they can't move away. So I would watch and wait and see what they do. So for example, in that photograph, if he started to look away and his movements started to become really irregular, or he may cry, that's a bigger one. But you can see in the agitation of his body, but you can see in the calmness of his body there, how connected he was. So I would have just sat back and watched. Yeah. They don't need us to use language at that time because the language distracts them. Yeah. There are plenty of other opportunities in the day to give language. It's really essential to give language in that young age, but that when they have periods of concentration, we don't need to give them language in that moment, because in this age group, this very, very young age group, it's very brief. Yeah. And in those brief moments, they make a difference because they build up that concentration. They learn to focus and concentrate and rely on that inner guide that's inside the child. So the next one is the role of the adult from 3 to 6. Here we continue to guide, but we step back more often. So in the 0 to 3, we have to step back. We have to step in more often because they're young and they need us. And they need us to model and provide that language. But in this 3 to 6 age group, we can step back more and we can allow them to have more problem solving, to problem solve more and to try and work it out before we step in. As we do in the 0 to 3, we need to prepare a rich and orderly environment. We give precise and brief lessons. And we trust the child to choose, repeat, and master activities. So that's a really important one, just like it is in the 0 to 3 age group as well. But once we have given a lesson, we need to trust the child is going to go back to this lesson if it meets something inside them that what drives them. And we need to protect their concentration by not interrupting their work, just as we did in the 0 to 3 age group as well. I understand that sometimes coming in and knowing when to interrupt or not interrupt can be quite tricky, but it just comes with practice, whether it's in your home or in a care setting. With practice and awareness, that's the important part. You're aware when you have stepped in and you've seen the effects that it had on the child. Yeah. So next we'll go on to the observation as a core skill. Sorry, my slide doesn't want to work. And I love this analogy. Observation is our compass. It is definitely your guide. Observation will guide you to know what to do next or what to not do. Yeah. And observing is truly observing. And I mean, today I'm just giving you a very, very big, just a very touch on observation, because when I do some lecturing for students, I actually do this for a whole day and it's all about observing. So that's how important observation is in a Montessori space. And it's the foundation of all work. Yeah. So Montessori is our compass. It guides us and it tells us when to step in. So when do we need to step in and give the child support? Yeah. When do we need, it tells us like, oh my goodness, the child is struggling now. We need to step in and offer maybe another demonstration or offer a new material or just be there to support them. Yeah. But we're just helping just enough, but we're not taking over. Yeah. We're always working beside the child and supporting them to do more than us, but we're stepping in and giving them support. And Montessori observation. Observation is our compass and it tells us when to step back. So if we are not observing, we'll not know when is the best time to give support and when is the best time to step back. Yeah. So we need to observe to know when to step in and when to step back. And we need to observe for what is each child ready for. It tells us what each child is ready for. So we may see a child working with a piece of equipment and we think a pouring piece of equipment, for example, for maybe a 2-year-old, and we can see that they're pouring it with ease. They're finding the pouring very, very easy. So we can think to ourselves, okay, we're going to provide another level of challenge and we can provide pouring into smaller objects, smaller containers, or pouring with into a funnel. So we're challenging the child. Yeah. But we have to observe to know these things. Yeah. And when we observe, we look for patterns, interests, and emerging skills, and then we adjust the environment. So a bit what I talked about before, we see that a child may be very heavily always focusing on language activities. So we think to ourselves from our observations, they have a sensitive period for language. So we want to provide as many materials and lessons in language. But without observation, we will not know these things. So this is a very, very essential skill to have. So preparing the environment, I did a workshop, a whole webinar on this. So this is just one slide, but if you're interested in learning more about the prepared environment, please go back and have a look at the other webinars that I have presented. So we prepare the environment so it meets the child's developmental needs. So depending on the age of the child that is either in your home or in your environment, but the basic things are that this means we provide child-sized furniture. We provide furniture that the child can use independently. So they can sit at a table, sit in a chair, at a table independently. They do not need us to hold them. So for a baby, they do not need us to hold them in a chair. If a child cannot sit up, then they're not ready for a chair. So we wouldn't provide them with a chair. We provide them with space to move so that they can develop the skills to be ready to sit in a chair. We provide children with real functional tools, materials that they can use. So we provide them with a real small glass. And I often hear parents and educators say, you give a baby a glass. So I gave my young daughter, a glass, a small little tiny shot glass at 8 months old. She was sitting at a very, very low weaning table. And of course, I stayed with her. If she was up in a high chair and I moved away, then she may have thrown it onto the floor. But it's never the child's fault in that moment. It's the adults in there. We need to reflect on ourselves. Yeah. Of course, a child, they're going to want to see what happens when a glass is thrown off a space. So we need to supervise children when we are providing them with these real materials. Yeah, because children will explore with it. Yeah. We need to actually provide them with a broom that can actually sweep. So when we look at materials that we have in our home or our space, and we're providing them with a broom, we need to be able to think, can a child actually sweep with this? Because there are a lot of brooms that are sold at toy shops that actually may not actually function. Yeah. Or if we're providing them with a watering can, can the watering can actually work? Yeah. So that's what it means by real functional tools. We provide a logical and attractive order. So everything in the space is attractive. Everything is beautiful, and that is up to us. That is our role to make sure that everything in that space looks attractive. Yeah, and looks beautiful. The paintbrushes, if they're for gluing, are not so. If they're really, really caked on with glue, they cannot work because they're very, very hard. Yeah. So that we want for the child to be successful in doing activities, we have to make sure the material is beautiful and functional. Yeah. And that last point there, we make sure the child matches. We make sure materials match the child's sensitive periods and current abilities. I don't go into sensitive periods in this workshop, but if you would like to go back to previous workshops that I have, it goes more into that. But it's sensitive periods can be described very quickly as a very, very highly it's like a light shines down an object and the child is highly attractive to it. Yeah. And they want to keep repeating it. So for example, language. A young baby wants to learn language. So they're fascinated with the face and they're fascinated with communication. Yeah, that's a very, very, very small, simple way of touching base on that one. But we need to make sure, basically, we need to make sure that the environment suits the age group that we're working with. Yeah, so we'll see in this photograph here, this would be for an older age group, of course, probably that 3 to 6 age group, because we have the 3-year cycle, because the tables are appropriate. the shelving is at their height. If we were to provide this environment for our young babies, we can see there could be quite some big problems. One, they wouldn't be able to reach the tables, or would they be able to reach the height of the shelvings, because the height of the shelf would be too high for them. So it's all those little elements that we need to think about, because preparing the environment is crucial, yeah, for, as one of the roles of an adult. Okay, so we're going to move on more to the adult's role here. We did mention this a little bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about when we step in. So children absorb not just what we teach, but how we move, speak, and interact. And this has, I like this water because it has a ripple effect. So if you think about if the way we're speaking is not always, if it's not respectful, just say, for example, then if we hear the children speaking in not a disrespectful way, it ripples out. So what we do has a ripple effect on the children. Yeah, so that's why I like to show that photo there. And we model grace, patience, and respect in everything, from how we greet children and how we clean up. So if children see, and I like that one, how we clean up, if children see that cleaning is like, they see our body when we're sweeping, it's like, oh, this is the most terrible job I've ever done. They're going to see that cleaning is something that's really bad because we don't want to do it. So we need to, if we're cleaning in front of the children, I mean, if they're not there, it doesn't matter how you're modeling it, but when they are there and we're modeling cleaning as something that's not important, then that's what they're going to see. We may not be saying anything, but they're looking at our body language. Like, oh, this is such a chore to have to mop the floor today, and they're watching us. Yeah. So they will see that it's not, even if you said I really love it, but they'll notice the non-verbal in your body and your space. And sometimes that can't be helped. We're not perfect humans, and we're gonna have those days and moments. And it's not about that. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware when we can be aware, and it's reflecting on things that we do and thinking, okay, well, I could do better next time. Yeah. So it's not about being perfect. Yeah. And knowing when to step in or not step in, that's a really important part as well. We always step in for the interruption. We always step in when it's unsafe. Yeah. We don't just stand back and observe the child and wait for something dangerous to happen. We always step in when there's something dangerous, or if the child is about to rip a page in a book. We do not let them rip pages. We do not let them break the materials. So we show, we step in and we model ways of respecting the environment as well. Oh, so I think I've just done the next slide before we've moved on, because I know this presentation. So I've already mentioned this this information back in the other one, in the other slide, but we'll just read the quote because it will make more sense now when I'm reading, when I was talking about interruption. Protecting the child's work. So that is a really, really crucial role. We are there as a guide and to protect the children. Yeah. And this is, concentration is the key that opens up to the child the treasures within him. Yeah. When we see the child concentrate, that is when then we're going to see those aha moments, those moments inside the child. So our job is to protect it. And so no unnecessary praise, no interruptions, and no hurrying them along. Of course, there are times when you need to be in spaces, and that's just life. They might have to stop something that they're very, very engaged in. But when possible, we try. And then I think the important part in that sentence is no unnecessary praise. So as a Montessori educator, and especially in Montessori as well, we do not use praise. We could use encouragement. Yeah. And when we walk past a child, for example, who may be, so for example, that observation of the child who's taking their shoes off, we could easily walk past, and this is coming from a place of we think this praise is going to help the child. We could say to them, "Oh, you're doing so well. You're taking off your shoe. Good job." But what actually happens in that moment is the child stops what they're doing. They stop focusing on their shoe and they focus on us and they focus on our words. So in that moment where we've come from really good intentions, we've actually stopped the child's concentration. And Maria Montessori also liked to talk about when the child is concentrating, we need to step back and forget about them. Of course, we need to supervise them to make sure that they stay safe in that space. But we step back and we forget that they're there. And we watch what's there. A child doesn't need our praise because they're doing work for themselves. That's another sort of concept to understand as the role of the educator or the adult in the space. The child is working for their own internal development. And we want the child to work for building themselves, not to work for the praise that they're getting. Yeah. Because sometimes down the track, some children, they will only do an activity or they'll only do an use piece of material if they know they're going to get praise. Yeah. But we want the child to do the work for them, not for us, because it's the child's inner development. Yeah. We can use words of encouragement like you did it all by yourself. Yeah. And if a child, like often I've seen babies, they clap themselves. That's fine. They're praising themselves. They don't need us to do that as well. And interruptions, I will go on to talk about that when I talk about some common challenges as well. Excuse me. So let's move on to some common challenges that the role of the adult may have in a Montessori classroom or in the home. So we can intentionally get in the way, always coming from a really good place of good intentions. We're doing things for children that they can do for themselves. So I know and I understand that sometimes things have to get done if you need to be somewhere, but if all possible, always allowing the child to do things for themselves that you know that they can do. Yeah. If, for example, it's putting their shoes on and you know that the child takes a long time to put their shoes on, you plan ahead and think, okay, I may need to be at this spot at 3 o'clock, or I may need to, we might be going out into the playground at this time. So I'm going to prepare the child and say to them, we're going to start going outside in 15, 20 minutes. Let's start by putting your shoes on. Then they can do it by themselves and they don't feel hurried to put their shoes on. Also, another one with the over-directing instead of guiding. Sometimes we can step in and direct the child, like you need to put it here, you should put it here. This is just some examples. And we're correcting the child and over-directing them instead of guiding them. So that would look something like, let me think. For example, we could say to the child, I mean, I'm talking about the shoes. We may as well keep with the shoe theme. You need to put your shoes right here on this shoe rack, and you point to the exact spot and the exact location. You say you must put them here on this spot. Stepping back and guiding could look like, there's the shoe rack. Please put your shoes on the shoe rack. So you're giving them an instruction, but you're guiding them to make a choice in that where they want to put the shoes. Do they want to put the shoes on the top rack or the bottom rack? So they're giving them choices, and children love choices. We all love choices. Choices are really, really essential for children. They love choices. Yeah. Another way that adults can get in the way is that we are interrupting deep concentration. And we did talk about this by going over and saying good job to the child. But another thing could be we could walk past and catch their attention and look at them. That's just more of a subtle way of interrupting the deep concentration. Or we could like gently touch their shoulder, all coming from a place of good intentions, but it does interrupt them. It does interrupt that deep concentration. Yeah, I know when I'm really focused on an activity or deep in work, if someone comes, I sometimes jump. And that sometimes can be for the child as well. When they go into that deep period of concentration, we just need to let them be. Yeah. And then another common challenge that that may happen is we focus on the results instead of the processes. So we focus on, we value the product more than what the process is. So for an example, a completion of a puzzle that they've worked on. We may value that it's finished, finally finished, but it's underlying all the processes and problem-solving skills that got the child to that puzzle. Yeah. Often when children draw, especially young children, they don't draw to make anything. They just draw to explore the materials. And if we focus on the product of what it is, sometimes I've seen children make up what it is, but it may not be a house or a truck. It may just be an exploration of colour and of moving a pencil on a paper. So when we focus too much on results, it takes away from the child's learning in that space as well. And also a lot of what children do, we can't see it. It happens inside, it's internal. We can't see what's happening. All these things are going on inside their brain. Yeah. Photos are important to have, but they don't really reflect truly what is actually happening inside. Yeah. So next we're going to go on to the inner journey of the Montessori adult. So learning to cultivate patience and presence. Yeah. So Marie Montessori talked about how the adult needs to have a profound inner transformation. And we need to learn to have that presence and patience to sometimes wait, because sometimes children can take a long time to do something. Yeah. And if we have that time, we have that cultivating that presence and patience to be there while they go through that process. Letting go of control and trusting the child, trusting that the child has this innate, natural inner drive, and we may not know where it's going, and that's okay. And the child may not know either, but if we're standing there together with them, observing, it will become clear. Yeah. That letting go of control and trusting, that can be a hard one. It depends on your background, your experiences. That one's going to really play a part in that. And developing keen observation skills, stepping back and taking the time to observe and see what happens. And embracing humility and openness. Yeah. And staying open to learning from the child, because the child will come into our space and they will teach us something. And a really beautiful quote that I always tell my educators and parents as well, that every day we come into a space and every day the child is a new child. So it doesn't matter what's happened before that day. We come in, we see that child is what are they going to show us today, because they're a new child. And development is so fast at this age group that every day the child is going to be a new child and they're going to show us something different that they didn't show us before. Yeah. And then our last slide before I open it up for any questions. Oops, I think I missed a slide. Sorry about that. Is that mastering our own emotional and lifelong learning, having that growth attitude is really important. So learning to regulate our emotions so that we can model calm and respect to the children that we're working with, either in the home or in a centre. We're reflecting on our responses to children's behaviour. So when children do things, we're reflecting and aware of what is actually it's making us feel, or why are we feeling like this when a child is doing this. So we're reflecting, and we're committing to ongoing learning and growth. So learning about child development, studying something that makes you feel joyful, so the children see that joy in you, and supporting children by growing ourselves. So doing things that make us joyful, the children will see that learning is joyful as well. And before I open it up for questions, I'll just leave you with this last quote. So I really love this quote. Marie Montessori has so many, but we discover that education is not something which the teacher does, but that it is a natural process which develops spontaneously in human being. So it's not about us. We're there definitely to support the child, but we need to watch it's like bubbling up in the child. What is the child going to show us today, and what do they need us to do? Yeah. So it will happen if we do those things, preparing the environment and sitting back and observing, then the child will show us. These things will bubble up and show us. It's in the child. Yeah. We trust the child. That is a very key one, trusting the child. And so the last one there is, for anyone who's interested, I have a Montessori business called Montessori Instinct, supporting parents in their home to learn more about Montessori. So I'll leave that up for a bit if you would like to connect and learn more. Please feel free to reach out. We can have a discussion and see if that's something you would like to do in your home space, and learn about setting up your home prepared environment as well. So thank you, everyone.